So today we're going to go over what pass protection scheme you should use versus the primary defensive metas of Madden 26. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, hit that notification bell, grab out your pen and pad, and let's get after it. The first thing that I'm going to illustrate to you guys, regardless of which pass scheme you guys should use, is untargeting the user. Now, the reason that we want to do the untarget of the user is that in most cases, there are some, and we'll talk about them later, the defense is basically predicated on using the user defender to make your offensive line confused. Let's go ahead and go into one of the most basic blitzes in the game that a lot of players will use. This is mid blitz out of a double mug. It doesn't matter whether it's normal, 3-3, or 2-4 version. We all know that the user comes down to the line of scrimmage and stands in the middle. If I were to be in any type of protection, period, it doesn't matter whether I'm in empty or base or full slide left or right, half slide left or right, you're going to see that there's going to be a line from somebody on my offensive line towards that user. But the truth is the user is a coverage defender in most defenses. So with this, what we're going to do from an offensive point of view is we are going to bring up the untarget feature. To do this, you press and hold left bumper or L1 if you're on PlayStation, tap Y or triangle if you're on PlayStation, and you guys will move this flame logo to the user that is on the field. Now, once you've done this, if you bring back up your block targeting, you will see that we have completely different arrows from the offensive line to the different defenders in the front. Most importantly, the user is no longer accounted for. Now, because this is a 6-man pressure, we still have to mathematically match those number of blitzers. So from the offensive point of view, I'm going to make sure that I have a blocking running back. And you'll see here that he is going to take the inside linebacker. We're telling the offensive line, do not let Jesse Bates confuse you. He is not blitzing. So when we snap this ball, you're going to see that we have those guys picked up. He doesn't impact us. And then from there, we're good to set up whatever our route combination is to beat the coverage. If it's man, you set up your man beaters. If it's cover 2, you run your cover 2 beating route combo. If it's cover 3, et cetera, et cetera. Another example over the years has been that loop blitz meta. We all know this all too well. This particular meta is predicated on dragging a linebacker across the formation to get a gap pressure to the right and standing over this left guard so we can't slide our protection. And when you bring up your protection, you see that there's an untarget logo on the guy that's coming in. So what we need to do, regardless of being in empty or base protection, is make sure that we are saying, hey, Wilson's not blitzing. He's there to confuse you, left offensive guard. Let's go ahead and untarget. And now you see that this completely changes who the left guard is looking at. He's no longer looking at the user. And when the ball is snapped, you'll see that we have the player picked up. And from there, it's all about your route combo again versus the coverage. So untargeting the user is the most important thing that you need to do within your pass protection scheme. I always tell people on my strategy website, gridirongameplans.gg, and if you haven't visited my website, make sure you guys open up another tab. The link is in the description. It is the best deal that you guys can find in the tip space. But I've always said to my members on the website, make them prove it to you. In other words, if they're running a blitz that relies on them standing over your center or your offensive guard and you untarget them, do that until they prove that they will run through the middle. Allow me to kind of explain what that means here. So we're going to go back to that loop blitz meta, or it could be the double mug where they run through the middle. And we're going to talk about how when they run this defense, we want to make them have to actually apply the pressure of manually coming through. So when we talk about this, I say, hey, don't block him. That's an invitation for them to actually manually blitz. But most players don't have the guts to actually do so. They're there to kind of wiggle in front of the line, but not actually physically come through. Now, in a lot of cases, they actually still will get chipped. In this particular case, you see with that blitz, it really didn't impact us too much. Somebody else got an insta shed due to an X factor or something, but it's not really a big deal. In terms of targets for actual blitzers, this was 5 versus 5, right? So we're really in a spot where mathematically we're saying, hey, just don't get confused by that guy. But even if he does rush, you still saw that we had a hat for a hat. You see that really Fridge just won his matchup against Hilgenberg. Everyone else kind of did a good job of targeting here in this regard. But when we're talking about a blitz that sends more players, like for instance, a double mug meta, there will be opportunities for them to manually come through. And you have to be prepared for that, okay? If you guys run this is an alert to you to let you know that this is probably what people are doing against you because your blitz doesn't come through. So going back to that first blitz in the middle, let's go ahead and just stand over the center. If I say, hey, this is a 6-man pressure with a 7th just trying to occupy, and we untarget Bates, yes, in theory, Bates could come right through the middle or engage with the center physically to make someone else come through. In those instances where they're actually physically touching a center or coming through manually, that's no longer a 6-man pressure. The math says that's a 7-man pressure, and you have to allocate resources for that 7th man, but make them show it to you first. So that's a quick seminar on untargeting and how it's going to improve your protection regardless of empty or base. But I know so many of you have philosophy questions on whether or not we should use empty or base. Now I'll tell you in this portion of the video, we're going to break this down to an easy science. Okay. If it's a stunt, you use empty. If it is a blitz setup, you use base. So what we're going to do here is we'll start off with kind of showing you, if you face a player that only stunts or only does mug blitzes, you guys can actually go into a coach setting in your menu. And this was patched into the game. So if you guys are watching this, this might be new to you. You guys can go to auto pass protection and you can tell your offensive line on every play to use a stock slide protection. Now, I don't use any of the full slides or half slides. That is not worth doing, but these are the two that you'll typically utilize. Empty is going to help us with stunt defenses. Base is going to help us with blitz defenses. So let's start off with the empty protection. Now, because we're on empty, what empty will do for us is the offensive linemen are going to scan. There are going to be some ratings that will help you guys out with your offensive linemen playing this better. But from an offensive point of view, this was the defense. Single mug, Tampa 2 or cover 4 shaded down with a double Texas 4-man. And then they would take a linebacker, whether it was this guy or this guy, and they would come down over the center. Now, when we tell our offensive line, hey, we're in empty protection, this is basically every single lineman kind of playing a zone, if you will, in front of your quarterback. It's not like you're hard coded to block one guy. It's kind of you're dropping and this is the guy that you're first looking at, but if he doesn't do what you think, you're kind of scanning, which is important for a twist and a stunt because these aren't straight line rush angles like you would get out of the mid blitz. You're having a guy that might kind of rush outside and another guy coming back inside into your area. So we want that particular ability of the empty protection to give us the best odds of picking up a stunt. Again, it doesn't hurt to do this. You should, if you know for a fact they're just trying to confuse the center so he can't go left or right, untarget the user. In certain cases, this will not necessarily move the actual play art. Sometimes it's a visual bug, but again, I usually untarget the user as a general attempt. It doesn't hurt to try, okay? In some cases, you will actually notice that the empty protection, you just can't get him untargeted. But when he doesn't blitz, your center is then gonna look for work elsewhere, okay? And we'll talk about what helps that momentarily. But when we snap this ball here, you're gonna see that all the linemen are looking for these twist stunts. Now, what did we have on this play? We didn't have a blown pickup. We just had a actual pass rush win. You probably noticed right there that our Abdul Carter got an instant win. You see right there, he just got a double or nothing. You know, this will happen. It's okay. But in terms of the stunt, look at how Quentin Nelson is ready for the inside looper on this play. Please ignore 51. Okay, that's just a ratings win. Nothing in terms of the actual pickup was wrong. We just lost a matchup, and that's going to happen from time to time. But look at how this works. You see that the center, once he realizes his guy is not blitzing, because he is in an empty protection, he's starting to scan and look. He sees that inside looper. You also see right here, 56 opens up to the outside. He thinks 70 has the guy on the outside. He's looking for the guy coming inside. If it were base, he might over pursue to the outside, and now the looper from the inside comes in free. That's what you want to avoid, because base is going to basically hard code things more. So if I were to go ahead and go back to that same exact stunt, there's no guarantee that this will come in free, but there's a less likelihood if we utilize base that this will actually work, okay? So you're going to see here, they come down over the center. I'm thinking, all right, I'm in base. I'm going to go ahead and use the untarget feature. Don't worry about him anymore. Now with base, a lot of times the untarget feature will actually work because again, that is your primary target. And when you tell them, don't worry about him, then he's going to look for somebody else. And that's kind of his guy. Now, of course, once he realizes that guy's not blitzing either, he's going to look to apply double team help. But when you take a look at how this works, you might see Quentin Nelson overextend himself to the outside rush angle of Abdul Carter because that is his target, and he might not be ready for the inside move here. And you see that in this particular case, he was okay, but a lot of times this is where you get beat, is using base protection against stunts. Now let's talk about what drives the ability for your offensive line to actually, be able to pick these up, even when you're in the wrong protection, okay? And that is going to be the awareness rating of your offensive line. This is a year where awareness is actually super, super important on your O-line. I'm gonna tell you guys right now in MUT that I utilize an awareness boost. My strategy item, I actually use Omniscient on my offensive line. A lot of players are going to be using pass blocking boosts. They're going to be using, pass block finesse boost, run block boost. No, you literally will notice that your offensive line is at its best when you guys get these awareness ratings up as high as possible. I will tell you that a few weeks ago, before I went to the Omniscient on my O-line, I actually sometimes struggled from game to game against certain players that were stunting against me, even though I knew what I was doing and I was employing the teachings that I'm actually giving you guys here in this video. Once I went to the Omniscient boost, I immediately saw my offensive line just become so much better. I haven't struggled with a stunt in very, very long time. And for the most part, I pick up most of the common blitzes. Of course, sometimes you'll have a matchup where you get a finesse rusher against a power guard or something, and that's an exploit for the defense that they're just gonna be able to take that mismatch all day long. But in general, in terms of block targeting, really, really good. I really haven't had blown protections since I went to Omniscient. Now you take a look here, I got 91 awareness on my left tackle. I've got 94 awareness on my left guard. Again, you saw Quentin Nelson, even in base protection, he knew what to do when his guy went too far outside and he was ready to pick up the inside looper despite being in the wrong protection. Just shows you the type of benefit this gives you. Okay, Hilgenberg, new legend center for the Bears, 96 awareness. Might be a little bit light at 259, but against the stunt heavy meta, I actually rather like him. Against some of the bulkier rushers, I'll be fine to go with my captain, Creed Humphrey. That's a little bit heavier. So, in general, both have high awareness. One guy's going to struggle a little bit more against the power move on the inside. The other one's going to be a little bit better. So I can kind of platoon this based off of what I'm, looking at based off of my opponent's defense. If they're rushing the fridge one-on-one, I'll probably try to go with Creed Humphrey. If they're trying to stunt inside, I'm probably going to go with Hilgenberg. Right guard, 94 awareness. Right tackle, the weak spot on my defense. And to be honest with you, when I do get beat by people, usually it is the right side. So I might decide to go with a different tackle in the near future, but Mimbu's done an okay job for me. He is the weak link at 86. I will tell you, I'm not 100% certain if the replacement theory of old years still applies. There used to be a thing in the game where your center's awareness, if it was higher than somebody else on your offensive line, he would donate his awareness to that player. In the case of this would be Hilgenberg donating 96 awareness to Mimbu while keeping 96 awareness himself. Again, once I went to this Omniscient card, I feel like my entire offensive line stepped forward, and I really haven't even noticed Mimbu getting me killed. So again, kind of up to you guys, but in general, go higher on the awareness, especially if you struggle with stunts. Now let's get into why you should use base protection. So I think I've already kind of spoiled this here, but base protection is basically hard coding a hat for a hat. This is really, really good when your opponents are heavily blitzing you and they're trying to bring down those extra rushers. Again, it doesn't do you a whole hell of a lot of good when you're dealing with the mid blitz meta and you're playing an empty protection. Yes, it can still pick it up, but why bother? Why not say, you know what, they're down here, 6-man rush. I know bare minimum I need to block 6. We're going to go to a base protection. So I'm going to go left stick down. It's not a stunt. And we're going to untarget on baits. Now you take a look at the matchups. You see right here, this is what it looks like. Center, pick up the left interior. Running back, pick up the right interior. Guards, pick up the tackles. Tackles, pick up the edges. And of course, you can go to half slides. If you want to go to, a half slide left or right, you could always change who the running back blocks. That's another thing. You could go base protection, untarget the user, and then you could actually use the ID the mic feature to tell the running back who you want to pick up. So you see when I do it like this, the running back's now that left guy. That's kind of cool. If I wanted to, I could also say running back, take that guy. Which will, in this particular case, hurt us because it presents a second flame logo. So don't get too crazy with it. But there is a world where you might say, you know what, let's just go ahead, untarget the user, play a base protection, And I'm just gonna say running back, pick up the right of screen edge. In this particular case, it looks like this could be dangerous as well. And you see right here, that guy comes through. So again, with the ID of the mic, be careful. I think in most cases, you're just gonna prefer to go base protection, untarget the user, and live with the running back picking up the interior rusher. That's the way I typically do it if I have to. So again, on target here, and then you see that that's how that looks. It looks good. You snap the ball, pick up for everybody, and again, utilize your man coverage beaters. Don't worry about sheds. Obviously, I got guys with X factors that are going to instant win here, but you see how that works, okay? Another example would be, you know, the heavier 3-4 meta or the 6-1 meta. Both fairly popular. I don't have 3-4 odd, but I do have the 6-1 here that I can share with you. Again, it's kind of the same principle. You know, when it's a blitz, you use base. When it's a stunt, you use empty. So in this particular case, you see right here, you know, somebody going to come down here and do this mug. I'm going to play out of a base. I'm going to untarget the user. And because this is a 6-man pressure, I need to block a 6 player. The running back picks up the edge. Now from there, we're just setting up our man beater. So for some of you, it's going to be drag. Some of you, it's going to be, you know, free forming routes, streaks, things like that. But, you know, look a hat for a hat, man beater out on the way. Obviously, Khalil Mack's still going crazy with that X factor, but you get the point. Everybody is picked up, you know, from there, it comes down to ratings and abilities and things like that, but you don't have free runners. That's what matters. Everybody here is touched by the offensive lineman that's supposed to block them. Nobody's looking at the user trying to confuse the center and the right guard. You see, everybody is picking up and looking at the guy you want them to pick up, and that is the majority of the battle. If you guys can do this, then from there, it's all about making sure you have the right matchups, okay? So that is today's video, how to protect yourself. Never take a sack again. I mean, obviously I say that a little bit facetiously, but take less, and that's gonna help you guys a lot more on the offensive side of the ball. We'll be back tomorrow with our next video. Until then, this is Zan. Get in the lab and good luck.